Welcome to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I'm joined today by Anthony Trollope, President of the Foresight Agency. Thanks for joining me, Anthony.
Hey, thanks, Jesse. Appreciate the opportunity to come on.
It's great to have you on the program. I'm glad you're in the industry. I think it's been what, two and a half, three? I don't
That's
even know.
right.
I,
Yep,
I, lose,
yep,
I lose track of time nowadays.
yep. You're right on the buzzer. Yep.
All right. Excellent. Well, thanks again for coming on the program, Anthony. And for those individuals who haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and your career to date?
Yeah, sure. I'm originally from Britain, grew up there, but moved to Houston, Texas, about 10 years ago now. Got married to my wife, who's American. Two wonderful boys, young boys, and we are a very happy family here in Houston. But I entered the equipment finance industry by virtue of taking over a legacy marketing agency and PR agency for our industry that was run by a veteran of the industry that many of your listeners will know, somebody called Susan Carroll. She was in the industry for over 35 years and still is a little bit on a fractional basis for us these days. But I acquired what is now known as Foresight Marketing Agency in 2023. Um, but prior to that, I have a pretty varied background. Grew up in an entrepreneurial household and started to be a sort of digital builder from a very early age. I had eBay businesses when I was 13 to 16 and was buying goods and selling them on there. And then I built a fairly large B2B wholesale community that I scaled throughout my university years and ended up selling to private equity. After I'd sold that business, I came to America to do some traveling, which is when I met my wife. Um, so I transitioned into performance marketing, doing SEO, PPC, digital growth for a number of companies here in the Houston area. So I had a stint as a corporate employee for about 8 years. And then, as I said, I got back to business ownership and running a company when I acquired Foresight in 2023.
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, I remember the first time I think I used eBay. I was like, wait a minute, like what's this? And so you just keep bidding, bidding, and then when you sell stuff, it's fun too, right? It's like, oh, there's
Yeah,
money coming.
yeah.
So what were some of the items that you were selling? Easy enough to take to the post office, not too bulky.
Yeah, so this is aging me a little bit. This was back when DVDs were first coming on the scene, and so I was selling the collectible DVDs that people were transitioning from VHS tapes. So I spotted an opportunity to sell all those classic titles, movie titles that people had in their collection that they were replacing VHS tapes with DVDs. So that was a market that I cornered. But I also did quite a bit of importing from China and did some different products. I think probably my most notable one was this. It was this kind of Powerball device. It was a handheld device that rotates, and it was a sort of therapeutic piece of fitness equipment that became very popular for a number of years. It's kind of one of those classic products that maybe the internet made famous, and it faded out after a couple of years. But I took advantage of that and was importing a product that I made over in China, so that was fun.
Cool. Yeah. I think that's how I got into eBay. It was like the DVDs.
Yeah,
It's just like, oh, look, you can buy this online.
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
go.
yeah.
All right. That's fantastic. And, like your entrepreneurial spirit there. I mean, growing a company that young and selling to PE, I'm sure it gave you some perspective. And I'm sure you look back and you're just like, huh, I wonder if I would have done this or thought about that. But at least you got to tackle that early, man. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it was quite the journey. It was an exciting journey, and I had the opportunity to go join the company that acquired me. But I'll never forget something that stuck with me, which is, I think, a lesson in good third-party advice. It was from the attorney that represented me. that was helping me through the negotiations. I was young. I was 20, 21, 22, I think, when the company was being acquired. So I had youthful exuberance for what was going on, but perhaps not the full knowledge and gravity of the different situations that could happen. And this attorney said to me, and I'll always remember it, when I was negotiating, they said, make sure that you're happy with your cash up front and whatever's committed to you in the form of salary, etc. Because the shares that you get in the company that is acquiring you may or may not reach their intended destination. And lo and behold, that company had some challenges in the years post acquisition, and we didn't materialize in the goal that we had set out to. So that was sound advice, and there's no substitute for good quality third party advice, in my opinion.
Sure, sure. And that's something I've never gone down that path, but I've heard some good war stories or,
Yeah,
pros, cons and everything else.
yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
good. That's great. And then moving to Houston, fantastic, nice and warm down there the majority of the time. With
Yes,
all
yeah, yeah. Perhaps too warm, for somebody who enjoys four seasons like we get in the UK. We do get a lot of rain in the UK, which I could live without, but having four seasons is definitely something that I miss. In Houston, it's either uncomfortably hot or just moderately warm, most of the year round. So I do miss the seasons, and I find the summers here a little
I,
intolerable.
I I live in Arizona. I'm from the East Coast originally,
Yeah.
so
So you know
it's
how that
kind of
feels. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. However, I was back there a week and a half ago, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is why I live in Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah.
We when it's
Tell
100
yourself that when it's 100 degrees there.
when it's 120, people are like, what do you do? I'm like, same thing you're doing right now. Stay inside and hope your heater doesn't go out.
Yeah.
Just pray for air conditioning. That's it.
Yep. Yep. There you go. There you go.
Excellent. Do you mind giving an overview of the Foresight Marketing Agency?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been in this industry a very long time. I alluded to that in the intro. So this was a company that Susan Carroll started
Yep.
over 35 years ago. And Foresight really helps equipment finance companies become sort of more visible, credible, and trusted in the market. So we tend to break that into three parts. So visibility, and we achieve that by doing things like PR, trade media, earned placements, etc. And then there's the authority element, which is where we're building assets that help underpin a thought leadership strategy, content, messaging, etc. And then the third tier of what we work on is conversion, so website positioning, sales enablement, assets, and so forth. Um, I think what I often say is that most lenders aren't losing because of their pricing. They're losing because the market doesn't clearly understand why they're different. So we really focus on trying to help those in the equipment finance industry stand out and differentiate themselves from what is otherwise quite a commodity. Getting money from people for equipment, for example, is somewhat of a commodity, and there's only so much you can compete on price with that. So we help companies um, understand and articulate what their differentiators are.
I mean, that's big. I mean, as much as people think that their name is out there and people will come to them first, I think it's human psychology. All of a sudden it's like you see a need and you see something, oh, okay. And then you get the opportunity. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Like, really?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah, we see the same types of problems over and over again, and those problems haven't actually changed a great deal over the 30 years of this agency's evolution. A lot of our clients and prospects alike say the same things. We look like everybody else. We don't know how to control our narrative. We have different stakeholders describing ourselves differently. or we rely too heavily on particular channels and we want to diversify where we're getting leads from. Um, and often there's no sort of synonymous strategy that's pulling all of these different uh, avenues of communication together. So I think we help equipment finance companies tie it back to trust. And I have a philosophy that marketing either builds trust or it erodes it, particularly if you're doing it wrong.
Well, I mean, that's fantastic. And I mean, there's a smaller shop that opened up probably like 18 months ago, and the gentleman was opening it. He was going around to some of his peers who, have longer tenured organizations, and like, what would you have done differently? And the number one thing I think across the board was I would have invested more in marketing up front.
Hmm.
And I know it sounds different if you're balancing a P&L, because it's like, okay, no, we need to have money coming in order to spend on that. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people think marketing is like an afterthought. But if you're not investing, I mean, what was a good number? 15, 20%? Is that high of,
Of sales.
yeah. And is there a magical number? It's been a minute. I graduated with a marketing degree, but that was 2003. So I don't know all the what the latest
Yeah,
numbers could be.
I actually don't know if folks divide it in that way anymore. More often than not, it's like you're saying, marketing is often a forgotten area of strategy, and the types of clients that we work with, you have to be of a certain size to be able to afford or to have a marketing unit. Most of the clients that we work with, we're working with sales leaders, and they've got a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, and they want things to happen very quickly. And marketing can often be something that you have to have some patience with.
Sure. Yeah. And then it's like, well, just make it work. And it's like there has to be a little bit more strategy than that. And
Yeah, yeah,
I'll pick on myself, who's someone who's been in a BD role pretty much my entire career. It's like just make it work. And it's like it's not that easy, right? You
that's
can't just
right.
call up Anthony and be like, give me a bunch of ads that make me stand out. There's the true discovery process has to come in, and
Yeah,
you have to do all this work behind the scenes. But
yeah.
so do you find yourself, I guess, in the equipment finance industry? Are you guys so someone who has a big marketing department probably doesn't need you, correct? Or do they
So
look to you for advice or thought leadership?
yeah, so if there's a company with a large marketing department, then we would probably help them on a very fractionalized basis. So we might run a specific channel for them
Got it.
or help them execute a certain campaign that they don't have the capabilities in-house of doing. But usually those engagements are short-lived or on a strategic basis. I think our bread and butter is serving those equipment finance companies that don't have a marketing unit or have a very, very small marketing unit and need additional cover. Or they need somebody to hold and execute the entire strategy, the entire gamut, here are our sales goals, here are our operational goals. How does marketing fit in with this? And then we're able to articulate them a go-to-market strategy that we can not only outline, but usually execute from end to end for them.
No, that's perfect. And then I know I'm going to pick on this industry just because I've been in it for so long. And I think a lot of these companies are allergic to technology and marketing, quite frankly. When you go to their website and you're just like, what's the last time this thing was?
Yeah. Yeah, we see plenty of that. Plenty of that.
And there's almost so much you can do, but you can't really overwhelm them, right? So it's just that delicate balance that I'm sure it's similar on the consulting side, Anthony, because it's
Hmm.
like you
Hmm.
go in and it's like they want everything, and you're just like, well, wait a minute, like that's not really a recipe for instant gratification. Like we need to dial it back a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Um, so do you find like a lot of your engagements, and I'm sorry to just dig in, just more of a curiosity factor. Do you guys start more small, or is it and then build your way up in an organization, or is it just kind of like, hey, here's what we need you for, go execute?
Yeah, it's interesting. Most of the prospects that we speak to don't necessarily come to us with a pre-scripted idea of exactly what they want to achieve. It's more that they want to use us as experts in this industry about how to get more from out of what they're already doing, or they want to break into new verticals. That's an area that we're seeing a lot of demand in, which goes back to my point about differentiation. So, um, financing is a commodity, but financing for very specific verticals is less commoditized and also is the levers to get in there are harder to pull. So quite a few of prospects come to us with a desire to break into those specific verticals. And usually over 30 plus years working in this industry, we have had some experience of breaking into some of those verticals and can help them. But we're always surprised. There's always one or two that come up that we have never done before that we're always interested in taking on.
Yeah, I mean, that happens a lot with some of the engagements that I'm on, where it's like we're acquired by a bank 6, 7 years ago, but yet people still think it's the same thing that was done 6 or 7 years ago, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
the landscape has changed a little bit. Or when you see a
Yes.
different leader take over an organization, you can kind of say, okay, so yeah, I mean, it's a great point. The differentiation piece is I don't think people will understand that. They think that
Hmm.
just overall reputation is going to get them to where they need to be.
Hmm.
So I guess while we're on the differentiation piece, like what are the strategies in 2026 um, that like what do you have? What was the old school marketing, traditional um, print media, um, online? I mean, we have a lot of social media today. You see some organizations more on the independent side, they're leveraging, uh, that. Uh, what are you seeing, Anthony?
Yeah, I kind of expected you to ask this question, so I prepared a little bit. And rather than just focusing on like specific channels, at least initially, I thought I'd kind of talk about some areas, just some principles that I think are relevant today. And the first one underpins this differentiation narrative that I've been talking about from the beginning of our time together today. So I think equipment finance companies should be focused not just on who they serve, because again, financing can be so broad, but it's also knowing who you are not for and having a niche definitely beats out broad claims. So what I mean by that is that anybody can compete with either sheer volume of dollars that can be lended out in the market or a rate, but actually going into a niche and owning that niche is far more defensible than trying to appeal to absolutely everybody. So the first principle that we always try to instill in our clients is that know who you are not for and be very clear in your communication about that. And then the second really dovetails on that. It's owning a narrative around the verticals that you're in. So don't just say flexible capital solutions, for example, because
I'm a
that
generalist. I'm a
yeah,
generalist.
what does that mean? And in the world now where AI is taking over and even the search giants like Google, they're pushing us into these silos where people want very specific solutions. So flexible is not a specific solution, and you're going to get beaten out by the larger capital providers. So for clients that we work with, we are always formulating strategies that underpin an ownership of that narrative. And to own that narrative, you need to be very specific about who you are and who you're not for, as I said. This industry is a really interesting one for earned media, and trade media still matters immensely in this industry. And we're all familiar with the trade media publications, and we're blessed to have extremely good relationships with all of them. But those trade media publications are still read. They're still very, very widely respected. And investing in earned media, as in not paying to play in those particular journals, is still incredibly valuable because people do resonate with it. They do respect it. And owning a narrative is part of executing an earned media strategy. And then two final things that I would mention is going back to what I said earlier, which is aligning marketing with sales. And marketing should always make sales easier, not just make it look good. You know, often we will work with sales teams and we will get a piece of collateral that they are using, and they will ask us, could you make this look better? Or could you make it look more presentable? And that's only part of the equation. We want to be involved in those conversations. We want to be involved in helping create those pieces because, as I said, marketing should make sales ultimately easier. But often sales is on this silo and marketing is on this silo, or maybe there isn't even a marketing unit, and that's why we're serving in that role. But often the two are not communicating with each other, and there's not sort of cross pollination happening. And so I think the best leaders in organizations that we work with understand that those two are interlinked and they should be playing and part of the same team. And then the last point that I would make is that reputation compounds, and you get a good reputation from doing the right things, and you also get a bad reputation for doing the wrong things. And it's very often that we see, particularly organizations that are sales led, that they make very short-term decisions or very short-term investments and don't think about how that's going to impact their long term.
Yeah, and it's not. I've seen that. I mean, we've seen that with organizations since your time in this industry, and I don't want to fault those particular leaders. They're just maybe not as familiar with the entire ecosystem of organization. And but I think it's like to your point, you can't really just shove things down. Um, it doesn't work that way. Got to
Sure.
be a full holistic view in order to have a successful long-term company.
I agree.
And then on the sales side, it's simple. It's like just make it look like this. And then from a marketing perspective, it's like, well, what the color tones? What does that mean? The positioning of the graphics. So there's so much stuff. It's like a science to then
Yes.
create a graphic. And
Yeah.
a lot of people just don't understand that. It's not just make it pretty.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's where leveraging your team definitely makes a lot of sense too. So do you guys do the graphic ads, press releases you mentioned? So basically any area where a marketing company would do that in-house, people can use you guys in a fractional setting for.
Yeah, so we're at the heart of communications. So typically that's a lot of written communications. So,
Sure.
PR, trade media, earned media placements, thought leadership, content strategy, messaging, etc. And yes, graphics and collateral is all a part of communications, but that's the fuel for the car, if you will. And we're focused on looking at a holistic perspective, not just a fractionalized pretty picture designer, if you will.
Sure. No, thank you for that clarification. And then, to, as you mentioned, I know Flint Finance Advisor, Monitor, I mean, those guys own this market, right? Every morning I wake up and look at to see, okay, what's going on before my day starts. I'm sure a lot of people are very similar. Um, are you seeing anything? Are your clients asking you more about like social media from an Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok scenario in regards to what that means?
Um, Not as much as you'd maybe think. I think that actually the most common question we're getting and have been getting for the last 18 months or so is more about AI, which is probably the same for most. Less specific on channels. I think folks have experimented with different channels. Probably the most popular experiment channel that I'm seeing folks use is TikTok, but that's a really hard one that when you're not B2C focused. TikTok is such a consumer-led platform that there's not a tremendous amount of application there for businesses unless you can come up with something incredibly unique. And, our industry is not blessed with a lot of creative experts in the field of TikTok marketing. So that isn't to say that it's not possible, but I would say that the bar is pretty low for unique positioning on TikTok. And frankly, I don't know that it's a channel that I would put in a top five for most of the companies in our industry, unless you're just purely trying to experiment and maybe throw paint at the wall or something.
Yeah, I could see where you definitely be noticed. I don't know if you want to be noticed for the right thing.
Sure, sure, sure.
Um, all right. So social media, I mean, like I said, I've seen some organizations leverage it more than others, but I think that thought leadership piece that you guys do, I think that's probably one of the more understated things
Hmm.
that
Yeah, I agree.
organizations should
I
be
agree.
doing. Is that a hard sell for you guys when you get into an organization to position them with stuff like that?
Thought leadership, not really, because I think that actually most prospects that we speak to understand that they need to develop a unique narrative. They just don't know how to actually achieve that. So oftentimes it's helping an executive or a leadership team being pulled through that process and helping them ask the questions that are very difficult, I think, to ask internally. It's often easier. This as a consultant. It's easy to come in as an external with no knowledge or very limited knowledge of an existing organization and the way that they do things and question them on whether that's the right way or the wrong way or whether there's ways to improve it or do it differently. And so I think that, like I said, most of the companies understand that there is a unique narrative that needs to be developed, but they don't know and don't have the tools on how to execute that, which is where we use, our 3 decades of experience to help them through that process as least painfully as possible.
Sure. And then, so I want to pivot back to Susan Carroll real quick.
Yeah.
So she's on in a fractional role. Is it what are your thoughts on how she built her reputation for 3 decades in this industry? I mean, I'm sure you see it in every meeting that she's in.
Yeah, so Susan, I'll never forget the first time that Susan took me to the ELFA convention and in 2023, and it astounded me how many people knew Susan, but also how many people had very deep relationships with her and knew her not just as a colleague but as a good friend. And I think that taught me from very early awareness of this industry that this is a tight-knit industry, one where reputation is everything. And I could tell that she'd earned her stripes over the years, being involved in this industry, nurturing relationships, but also giving back. So Susan's career actually started at the ELFA, and she was, I believe, don't quote me, but I believe that she was one of the founders of the Marketing Communications Committee, which is a very long-standing committee that I'm part of now. And there's 10 to 15 others that are in our industry that are also part of it. But Susan served in various different capacities on the ELFA for many years. So not only has she leveraged that to build her business and ultimately the business that I own today, but she has used it as a way to meet colleagues and create friends, which I think was wonderful to see. And yeah, we often use Susan's name when we're speaking to people because she's so well known. That it definitely helps with our credibility when we're referring back to our 30 years of history in this industry.
So before Susan brought you to that ELFA, did you already acquire the her company? I was just wondering what kind of got you into equipment finance, or how did you stumble across?
Yeah, so I was working a corporate job for a commercial real estate company at the time, and we'd had our second child, and I'd really made this commitment to myself when I first came to America that working in corporate America was a pit stop for me. It was a short-term thing. You arrive in America and you go through the process of being a legal immigrant. You have to go through the process of obtaining a work permit and then latterly a green card and then ultimately citizenship, which I'm very glad and happy to be through that entire process now. But to do so, when you first come here, you're almost like a brand new baby. I think when my son was born, he had more rights and everything than I did. Even though
Like,
I
what is
was
what's going on? Yeah, I
30
get it.
years older than him. So establishing credit, since we're talking about the commercial finance industry, I mean, establishing credit and working for a corporate employer, I think was very helpful rather than trying to sort of work my way through entrepreneurship. So, but also as a point in my life, sort of mid career, early to mid career, and wanted to learn some other skills, and I felt that going and working for an employer and having a boss and having folks to report to. And leading a team, building a team, I think was all part and parcel of helping me develop as a leader.
Sure.
So just to go back to your initial question, I had I had discovered Susan's company in the process of finding a business that I wanted to acquire. And it just so happened that it was in the equipment finance industry. There was no other connection than that. And Susan and I had concluded our business, a week prior to me joining and turning up at the ELFA. So we had never met each other. In fact, our first time together was at the ELFA convention over there in Phoenix, actually, where you are in 2023.
Yeah, she's probably like, why don't you go? Because I think she has a place out here in Scottsdale.
She
So it's
does.
like, do you want to sweat in Houston and meet, or come to Arizona and meet?
Yeah,
Sweat.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it's like home from home.
So I mean, I guess so that was your first convention right here. When you saw, I guess, those relationships, or I guess the sense of community in this industry, how'd that make you feel um, with your acquisition, Anthony?
Well, I mean, I think I got the
I'm sorry to dive
sense.
so deep into some of these things. I'm just really curious because I'm biased, and I don't know why. I've been in this industry for 2 decades, so that's why I
Yeah,
just curious.
I think I had the sense that the ELFA was more than just a trade organization or a trade association. I definitely had a sense that it hit deeper than that, and that was something that Susan definitely impressed upon me early in our working together. That it wasn't just industry insights and benchmarking and committee involvement and things like that, that the ELFA was a lot more than that, and that there was tons of mentoring opportunities. There was friendships that were being developed, and that the ELFA, I think, underpinned a lot of the sort of progression of the industry, and it was a critical part of that. So I took that very seriously and wanted to get involved myself, you know. So I joined the ELFA committees. I'm on the Service Provider Business Council, which I was elected to in 2024, 2025, and I'm also part of the Marketing Communications Committee. So it's an industry, and it's also an organization that I put in the top tier of what we should be involved with. But also, the maybe one interesting thing about Foresight is that this is the only industry that we participate in. So we are exclusively focused on the commercial finance industry, and a little bit more granular than that, you know, equipment finance is at the core of what we do. So we aren't involved in any other niches or vertical markets. Like, we are exclusive to that, and that's often music to clients' ears, because this is somewhat of a difficult industry to grasp communicating in, but also, you know, there's a lot of procedures and process and terminologies that otherwise would not come naturally to generalist marketing agencies that might dip their toes in lots of different verticals.
No, I mean that's and I'm sure you stumble across. Oh, I have a local friend, or I have this person who does that. We get it all the
Yeah,
time. Consulting perspective, it's like, wait, were you doing what? Who built this? Who built this website, or who did this? It's like, oh, we know a guy, or there's a company up the street. I'm like, what other
yeah,
equipment finance experience they have?
yeah,
Well, nothing, but it's this guy's brother-in-law, and it's like,
yeah, yeah. We still definitely come across that from time to time.
yeah, the biggest competition you have is in-house. Some scenario like that, and it's like, okay, eventually
Yeah.
it'll change. Eventually. Anthony, I ask everyone who comes on the program to give me a fun fact about themselves. So, other than entrepreneur as a teen, sold a company in your early 20s, it's badass. And then, moving to the States, what do you do outside of work?
Well, I need to get back into golf. I need to come to one of your tournaments, Jesse. I sold my clubs before I came to America, and I keep telling myself, you know, it's been 10 years, but I need to dust off my swing and get back out onto the course. But so I need to do that. But you know, my life tends to revolve a little bit around my children at this point. My two sons are 3 and 5, and I put them at the heart of everything that I do. I'm very active as a father, and it was very important to me that I design my life around them rather than the opposite way. So to tell you the truth, I'm full and thick and f fast on everything involved with my boys at this point. I think a fun fact about me is that my friend and I were inspired by a TV show called Friday Night Lights, and it's based actually here in Texas. And we used to watch this show, and we said, wouldn't it be a great time to go and get involved in the Texas kind of football arena. So that's exactly what we did. We got on a plane and we hired a Ford Mustang, a convertible no less.
Of course.
And we set out again. We actually started here in Houston, funnily, and we drove across some of the eastern states and then up and across, and then we ended up back down in Houston. But we did about 3 weeks, and we covered between 3,500 and 4,000 miles. So it was a really good trip. And I suppose that's my fun fact that we were inspired by the TV show, but it was my wife that kept me here. Falling in
Yeah.
love with her and we just celebrated 10 years of marriage so last year. So yeah, very
Congratulations.
happy.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So
Yeah, very
are you
happy to
starting
be.
the boys like training already? I mean, do they pushing the football around? Because that's how you got
Uh,
to make this thing come full circle, right?
Yeah, true, true, true. My youngest is into soccer at the moment, and my oldest is really enjoying jiu-jitsu. Yeah, we'll see whether they end up going down the football route. I kind of hope not because we're used to rugby back in England. You know, England is very popular for rugby. I tend to think that American football that they hit a little bit too hard, and so I'm a bit concerned about the long-term ramifications of getting involved in that sport. It's not for everybody, but we'll see. They'll obviously make their own decisions as they get older.
It's an interesting debate as a British person saying that American football hits harder than rugby. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
slippery slope. I don't think we have a big audience across the pond, so I think you're safe.
yeah, 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 yeah. Let's pause it there. I don't want to offend any of my American compatriots. It's
No,
a
I
good
don't think you're.
sport.
I don't think you're offending anyone. I think that maybe the rugby people would be like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" Then again, they don't.
Yeah.
I'm good. My last question I have for you, Anthony, is why should someone want to do business with yourself and the Foresight Property Agency?
Yeah, I mean, I think it hits on quite a few of the points that we've already spoken about. That we've been in this industry a very long time, so there's no ramp up period with us. We're also exclusive to this industry, so we're solving a lot of the same problems that you're already dealing with. All of our team are hired from within the equipment finance industry, which is quite an interesting nuance. Um, so you typically got an account manager that's very familiar with this space or has worked in companies in this space as well. All of our writers and editors are also, many of them are former journalists in this industry as well. So that's an interesting nuance. And yeah, we've carved out a reputation of doing the right thing and being a good advocate for those that are looking to succeed in this industry.
Excellent, Anthony, and congratulations on your success in the last couple of years here. And congrats to Susan Carroll and her legacy. It continues to move on.
Yes, it
Um,
does.
and I look forward to seeing you and the Foresight Agency grow in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks for your time. We'll be talking soon. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.